Hey church, my name is Dante and I'm the high school pastor out at the San Marcos Escondido campus, and I'm so excited to get to be here with you today for today's Daily Dose. But before we jump in, I've got a preface because this message is for a very specific group of you. You see, this message is not for those of you who feel particularly strong or able or capable or who have got everything figured out and so you have no worries in life at the moment. But rather it's for the rest of us, those that maybe even feel a little bit weak or weary or tired, for those of you that maybe are just a little bit overwhelmed with everything happening in family and in marriage and with children and with school and with work, for those of you that even feel physically weak and incapable, for those of you that feel spiritually weak, where you really want to follow Jesus and yet you know what to do and you keep finding yourself doing the thing you don't want to do and you're in the wrong, and this is for you. And thankfully, this is for us because you're not alone, and thankfully, I've got a verse for us today, and here's what it says. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. In other translations and versions, instead of hope in the Lord, it simply says, wait on the Lord, for those that wait on the Lord. And if I'm going to be honest with you, I don't really like that. Like, I like the rest of the verse, like the renewed strength and the soar on wings like eagles. Like, that's sweet, but waiting on the Lord, like, I don't like to wait. If you're anything like me, you don't like to wait either, especially when there's problems, especially when there's things that need to be fixed. This happened last week. My family and I, Shelby, my wife, and my son Bodie, we're in the process of moving right now, and in our new house, there's a lot of new things that need to be built. And in all honesty, I am not the biggest builder, and yet I took a shot at it, and there was this cabinet that needed to be built, and I opened up the box, and as I'm opening it, my wife, Shelby, looks at me, and she goes, hey, just wait for me, I'll help you with that. It was kind of like a backhanded compliment of like, hey, thanks for doing that, but I know your capabilities, and it was okay. But I thought, like, I don't need to wait for her, I'll figure it out. And so I start building it. I build the top, the bottom, the sides, the front, and I get to the back and it just won't quite fit, and I'm confused, and Shelby comes over and she's like, hey, why didn't you wait for me? And I tell her I thought I could do it on my own, and what had happened is I built the cabinet completely upside down, and so I had to reassemble it, and it was this whole mess. But the whole point of that is what this passage is trying to get at is you and I, we actually can't do this on our own. And if we try, we're going to mess it up, and it's going to lead to a lot of brokenness within ourselves and for others, and pain and hurt and having to retrace our steps back. And yet, rather, this passage is saying is in your struggle, rely on Him, to trust in Him, to wait on the Lord. You and I were never made, actually, to be self-sufficient. We were made to wait on the Lord. And that's not a passive waiting. That's not a sit on my hands and just magically hope that something happens, but rather this is just a shift in knowing that as a Christian, my job is not to try to figure something out, try to do it on my own, but rather to put my trust in Him, to draw near to Him as He draws near to me, to remain in Him as He remains in me, that in our struggles, that in our circumstances that overwhelm us, that in our spiritual battle with flesh and spirit and wanting to have faith and yet sometimes struggling with that, our job is to lean into Him, is to rely completely on Him. And as Isaiah so beautifully lays out, as Scripture is littered with, and time again, it simply reminds us that He is faithful, that He will give us strength, that He will renew our hope, that He will give us rest, that He will ultimately make us more like His Son. So my challenge for you today is simply that in the midst of whatever you're going through, spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, that you would rely on Him, that you would have faith in Him, that you would lean in, that you would wait on the Lord. Hopefully that challenges you, hopefully that encourages you, and we'll see you next time.